Today we're going to be talking about playing the missions in Infinity Code 1, but maybe delivering that in a way that you might not have thought of before. You see, one of the beauties of Code 1 and Infinity in general is that whilst each army/faction does have plenty of unique identity, there's a lot of underlying symmetry, which means that there is some universal knowledge. But at the same time, there are also different specific things to each factions that they will excel at, and so you'll want to focus on those. However, that symmetry makes the game brilliantly intuitive to learn, because you can kind of just learn one thing and then apply it to the entire game. So in just a minute, we're going to get rid of my face and we're going to head over to the Infinity Army app, where we're going to look at each mission one at a time, discuss some general, overall ways that you might want to play that mission, but then also look at an example of a unit from each faction that typifies how that faction does well in that mission. However, before we do that, why don't you give this video a like if you like it? Why don't you also consider subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications so that you can stay up to date when I publish new videos to YouTube. If you really love the content and you want to support me and help me continue to do this, there are also some affiliate and Patreon links down in the description below that you can check out in order to do that. Annihilation is the mission that focuses not only on killing as many of your opponent's minis as possible, but also on preserving your own. It's a mission where attrition is not the way to win the game, but instead we should be looking to trade up. That is to try to ensure that any model we lose has killed more points from the enemy's army than it cost us to take in ours. Achieving this can be done in a number of ways. Particularly killy and particularly resilient units are going to be the obvious inclusions for this mission, and you should be able to spot which units are good at those things without too much help. APHMGs, rocket launchers, fast units with great close combat, dual action attacks, that kind of stuff is all very good at killing. Similarly, multiple wounds, high armour and biotechnical shield, as well as good mobility, are all great things for keeping a model alive. Instead, what I want to show you for this mission are some units from each faction who are particularly good picks for purposefully trying to trade up. One thing I want to insert here too, before we look at specifics, is that if your army has access to a total reaction remote, this is a scenario where I really think they shine. At only 2 points, I love Octavia for this mission. Although the Fusilier with missile launcher is a point cheaper, Octavia's missile launcher gets +1 burst and she has an extra point of armour. Find a high spot, deploy her prone and enjoy vaporising multiple units a turn, unless your opponent hugs cover all game. That said, the Fusilier is also a fine option if you can't maybe afford the extra point for Octavia. The new Jujac box that's been previewed at the time of recording this has a lot of people particularly high on this unit, but in Annihilation specifically, I really love them. They all have flamethrowers, giving them some real danger zone ability if the opponent does want to be a cover hugger. Stat-wise, they're very similar to Zhuyongs, who I also love for Annihilation. But Jujacs get a couple of amazing options here that are specific to them. A Spitfire for some high rate of fire medium range naughtiness, and the Breaker combi rifle for any silly sausage opponents who bring key troops with low or no biotechnical shield. Ariadne being, well, Ariadne, they have to play Annihilation a little bit differently, generally relying more on stealth or close combat to trade up a lot of the time. Polaris team kind of break that mould and are an auto-include in a lot of missions because of that. The Bear accounts for 2 of the 3 points you'll spend here and is a lot of model for that tiny cost. With armour 5, climbing plus and 2 wounds, as well as being terrifyingly fast, it gets there, and when it does, it eats things. The chain rifle is great, its CC abilities are the stuff of nightmares, the Bear just does work. Just remember to keep that controller hidden so as to not give away free points, because it is very fragile. Perseus is a great example of a profile that asks for, well, very little from you and gives a lot back. Most of his weapons target biotechnical shield, so he needs you to pick your targets wisely, or just be lucky and draw Ariadne as your opponent. Once you do one of those two things though, he's super hard to hit, he's amazing in close combat, amazing at range, and to boot is one of the coolest looking models in the faction. Take him, love him, win games with him. Combined Army are another faction that have to play this mission a bit cagey, but one thing they definitely take is a Caliban with MSV1 and a Spitfire. It might not look too hardy at first glance, but amongst that keyword soup of abilities you'll find Protheon. This means it can kill enemy units in close combat and absorb wounds from them, meaning that if you can sneak this thing in, and it has the tools to do so, it can wreak absolute havoc, whilst being very hard to put down. Remember that Protheon lets it exceed its current maximum wounds, so this thing can get up to about 3 wounds. Okay, this one may be a little bit controversial. Recommending a 4.5 point unit in the context of trading up? Well, I have 4 words for you. +1 burst Feuerback. And not just this absolutely devastating ranged weapon, but on an Armor 6, BTS 6, 2 wound body that moves 8 inches a turn. It gets where it needs to be and it vaporizes what it sees, whilst being almost tag levels of hard to put down. Also makes a wonderful lieutenant. Domination is in many ways the most technical mission, if you look at it from a surface level. It asks for specialists, especially hackers. It asks for mobility so that you can get units into quadrants, but it also asks for a lot of what Annihilation wants to do in order to clear enemy units from those quadrants whilst staying there yourself. In truth though, I've played this mission more than any other in Code 1, and in my experience, you win it by ignoring consoles and just going after quadrants. Sure, if you can grab a handy console in a way that doesn't involve splurging orders or positioning badly, you should always go for it. But the big points come from controlling more quadrants, and so that's where I'd focus, with hacking consoles being more incidental. As such, mobility, infiltration, forward deployment and the like are going to really pull their weight here, although again, I also quite like a total reaction bot here because they're really good at limiting your opponent's movement. Akalis are just great for this mission because they do a little bit of everything that you want and don't break the bank. The parachutist and combat jump abilities make them good at contesting enemy quadrants. The cheap hacker means if you're going after consoles, you can do so with a bonus. The Spitfire is a great killy option for clearing enemy quadrants, and all of the variants are pretty cheap. The only thing to remember with your Akal is they are quite fragile, so don't be too gung-ho. Use cover, move between it. Tigers are a similar deal to Akalis, in that they have the deployment skills and weapon options to be where you need them and lay down some serious hurt. Where they really shine though is that for just half a point more, you get Mimetism -3, which makes them just acres more survivable. They will struggle a little more to trade up if they're killed, but then killing them is that little bit harder. Ariadne's SAS Special Operations profile has been in my list every single time I've played this mission, and it never disappoints. It deploys anywhere up to the halfway line, giving it just a short jaunt to the enemy quadrants, but it does so as a camo token and with Mimetism -3. What's more, it's backed up by being an absolute terror in close combat, at just 2.5 points. It's easy to see why this is a favourite. While she might not be the fastest profile in Nomads, Mary Problems excels in Domination for a number of reasons. If your opponent is playing hackers and going after consoles, she probably outclasses them in every way. She also has forward deploy, getting her 16 inches onto the table right away. An SMG is a nice up-close option, benefiting from AP ammo, and a Mimetism -6 is going to make keeping her alive just so much easier. Combined Army have a real gift for this mission with Code Alley. Your enemy is going to want Mimetism, but she has MSV too. She has access to any of the available flavours of deployment, with combat jump, forward deploy and infiltration all being available to her. She has Protheon. She has insane CC abilities, meaning she's very scary, and she never costs more than 3.5 points. Probably pound for pound, the single best model in all of Code 1 for this mission, in my humble opinion. Unlike armies that require propping up by characters in this mission, O12 brings an option that's not only great for it, but is also availability too, meaning you can double up, and that's exactly what you should do. Your Gangbuster infiltrates, that's a tick. It has MSV1, that's a tick. It has Mimetism -3, that's another tick, and it's only 2 points. If Code Alley is the best single model for this mission, another half point for a pair of these is probably a very close comparison. Firefight is another interesting mission because how it reads on the surface and how it actually plays are quite different. The big scoring comes from killing your opponent's lieutenant, which is open information for this scenario, and also for killing more army points, so of course these should be your focus. However, having more surviving specialists and killing more specialists is an interesting sub-game that's definitely not to be ignored. I personally like to take just a doctor with a peripheral for this one. The doctor can try to keep my lieutenant up, but with the peripheral doesn't have to expose itself and give away points to my opponent. I also like a fairly hardy lieutenant here. I will say that list building for Firefight is far easier at 25 points than it is at 15. In a mission like Firefight that is suited to them, Infirmaries will feel very undercosted at 2 points. You'll want to give them a PAL bot though, so remember to budget an extra half point for that. The Infirmary has all the tools to keep your lieutenant standing, which is great, but it also happens to be absolutely terrifying in close combat, which means your opponent really has to consider hard if they want to try to combat drop or parachute in an assassin, for example. When we talk about the kind of lieutenant you want to take in a mission like Firefight, snipping 5 points straight off your army list for a CN lieutenant might give you pause for thought. Don't pause, just do it. Not only is this chap my absolute favourite mini in the Yuching line, it's also a nightmare. It has killing power, it has MSV, it's nutty in close combat, it can cheese extra movement with dodges, and it's really hard to put down, thanks to 2 wounds and armour 4. The HMG on the lieutenant even keeps him at the kind of range where you most like to keep your LT. It's not often when playing Ariadna that you feel like you're almost cheating. Uxia in Firefight is such an example. With the tools she has, it feels like she should be a specialist operative, and indeed she can be. However, there's also a non-Spec Ops profile that doesn't risk giving away points to your opponent. If you take this, you'll be rewarded with a fantastic hunter-killer type unit. Infiltration, martial arts, surprise attack, camo, a 4-inch dodge, and MSV1 are all the toppings you want on your ice cream if your ice cream is designed to kill things that like to hide. What's better than a capable doctor with a peripheral? Well, in a mission where you don't want that doctor to die, being able to start with it completely off the table and only bring it on both if, when, and most importantly, where it's needed, that's big brain gaming. Even better yet, because the Zondcat parachutes in with them, you don't even need to put them in harm's way after they've parachuted down. All around wonderful stuff for the Nomad player. I feel like I might be accidentally selling Firefight as the Doctors Matter mission, and that's certainly half true. It's not so much the specific reason I'm recommending the Obsidon here though. In fact, Combined Armies Medtech is a bit of a unique item in Infinity, giving you a doctor and an engineer in the same model. Once again, they can take a slave drone too, so that you can keep the model itself out of the way and only expose the drone to fire. So, in this particular case, where we're really benefiting is that we can pick up both our fallen troops and any remotes or anything like that, but we only have to protect a single miniature, and that's really good in Firefight. Boo! What's this? Another bloody doctor? Well, yes, but also no. O12 kind of play this mission a little differently in that they have some very offensive lieutenant options in the Gamma and Zeta lieutenants that they actually actively want to take. This means that a Beta Doctor is particularly interesting for different reasons. It's one of the few doctors in the game that's as fast as its peripheral and also the gamma that it's trying to keep up with, which is great. But when it's also dodging on 15s, has armor 3, mimetism -3, and 2 points of structure, it's just a bit hard to kill. On top of that, it's a great gunfire, and has a lovely +1 burst nanopulsar if things get too close for comfort. Now, if you want a mission that's all about specialists, supplies is where you'll find your fix. Specifically for this one, fast specialists that are survivable are going to be insane. The aim is to sprint to the middle, grab boxes, and then keep hold of them until the end of round 3. Something to bear in mind with this mission though is that if you can cover the boxes well enough with good guns that hit reliably, you can just walk up and collect them toward the end of the game, stepping over all the bodies you made in rounds 1 and 2. And here we have exactly the kind of specialist I'm talking about when we say fast and survivable. 6-2 is a good enough move to have them on top of a box within a couple of orders. Big tick. But where it gets spicy is in that stat line. Armor 5, BTS 9. Yes, 9. And 2 wounds. They're going to make this guy hard work to shift. What's more, a dual action close combat weapon, martial arts level 2, and a 23 close combat stat make Knights of Justice nicely equipped to slap those boxes out of the hands of an enemy trooper too. So here's one you might not have expected, but I actually love the Blue Wolf in this mission. The ability to have a 5-shot damage 15 medium range weapon on a platform that moves up to 10 inches a turn is exactly the kind of fire support that's really handy in supplies. What's more, it's hard to put down and just happens to be great in CC too, so it gives your opponent a bunch to think about. 7 points isn't nothing, but it's also not nearly as expensive as other tags in Code 1. Supplies is not a particularly easy mission for Ariadne. They have a lot of camo and mimetism, which is brilliant, but a lot of it is on very fragile bodies, and if you want to pick up crates, you have to drop camo to do so. The Unknown Ranger is a great mold breaker, and is an auto-include in this mission for me. As well as having MSV1, which is very rare for Ariadne, he also has mimetism -3, but on a tough body with armor 4. Add to that the nasty Mark 12 for ranged fighting, and an AP CC weapon and martial arts level 2 for up close, and I think you can probably see why I think he's made for this mission. Nomads in Code 1 struggle a little for fast movers, and due to hacking also being weaker in Code 1, they kind of lose a few of their party pieces. However, the Sombra does a lot of work to fill in some gaps. With an 8-inch forward deploy, it's pretty much on top of the crates right away. It has camouflage to help it find the perfect position, and then even once the camo is dropped, it has mimetism -3. Climbing Plus helps greatly with getting away with the crate by allowing the Sombra to reach places that pursuers can't easily follow. Add to that a healthy armor and great BTS, meaning they're not particularly soft, and you have yourself a piece that plays supplies brilliantly. Combine Army give us another great example of a model that won't score points itself, but will really help your other units to do so. Sheskine is an astounding fire support platform, with Nanoscreen giving it effectively cover from all sides, Protheon propping up its already decent 2 wounds, and Martial Arts level 4 making your opponent very scared to get close to it. You might already be liking this profile. But where things get extra tasty is that Red Fury when combined with Sheskine's profile skills. Effectively, in Sheskine's hands, it's an 8 to 24 inch good range weapon on a BS-15 model. Yes, 15, that's not a typo. We get 4 shots and 15 damage, that's literally an HMG, just with a shorter good range band. Clear and control is the order of the day here, and Sheskine is doing it brilliantly. Honestly, I could have pretty easily just picked Beta Troopers again here, because they have a Spec Ops profile, but I also really like Casanova. Although only a 4-4 move, they do have a +8 inch forward deploy, so they'll be where you want them. They're terrifying in close combat, have mimetism -6, making them very hard to hit, and to round it off, they dodge on 14s. Once again, this is just good stuff for grabbing boxes. You'll probably still take a Beta too, but as a unit, you'll be well set to include Casanova. Even more so because they're just so cheap for everything that you get. So again, as we wrap up this video, I just want to remind you that the things that I'm suggesting, the units here, they're not me saying this is the absolute best unit for this mission. Instead, I'm trying to offer signposts that point you in the direction of the kind of units that do the kind of things you want to be doing in those missions. So folks, I really hope this little guide helps you in your next game of Code 1. Please do feedback to me in the comments below what you think of my suggestions and any ideas that you may have had as a result of hearing them. I'd love to hear from you as always. But until the next one, folks, I am going to get out of here, so thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one, and bye-bye for now.